Okay, welcome everybody to the Certification Advantage for the military community and happy National Veteran Small Business Week. I want to introduce everybody to our welcoming speaker, Mr. Victor Parker. He is the Deputy Associate Administrator for Office of Field Operations. Victor?
Awesome. Good morning, and thank you all. Welcome to our National Veteran Small Business Week event, really entitled Certification Advantage for the Military Community. We are super excited to have all of you join us today. And on behalf of the U.S. Small Business Administration, I'd like to thank you and give you our highest appreciation for your faithful service to our nation. We are so proud and honored to have you. As we celebrate National Veteran Small Business Week, we absolutely recognize and honor our service members who have now took the time to begin their journey on entrepreneurship. And they have been all on board, safeguarding and watching our freedoms, and now they are back serving our communities and being a great part of the small business ecosystem each and every day. Veteran-owned small businesses constitute a vital segment of our U.S. economy and our landscape, and it's really a part of our nation's prosperity. There are over 1 million veteran-owned businesses that contribute $1 trillion in annual sales to the nation's economy. So these businesses span diverse sectors, different types of markets all across the country, with notable presence in professional services, construction, healthcare, retail trade, and even more. Your fortitude, resilience, grit, combined with the community support and resources from the SBA, can only help you launch and maintain a profitable business. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your service and commitment, not only to our country, but again, to our communities and to our businesses. And a huge shout out to our team at the Office of Field Operations and Small Business Administration for having this event and joining all of us again together. So now I have the great opportunity of handing it over to my colleague, Mark Winchester, District Director of Houston District Office.
Thanks, Victor. As part of this year's celebration, we, the SBA and the 68 district offices, including the Houston District Office, are thrilled to provide you with the Certification Advantage for the Military Community Workshop. You'll learn how federal contracting certifications can open doors to greater business growth and opportunities. The federal government is the world's largest purchaser of goods and services, and we are committed to helping you access this marketplace through certifications available on our MySBA Certifications platform. Today's workshop will cover everything you need to know about veteran-owned small business certification and the service-disabled veteran-owned small business certification. These certifications can provide a significant advantage, offering priority access to federal contracts, and help you expand your business and serve new customers. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your service to our country. We look forward to supporting you on your journey to success in the federal contracting space. Before we begin, we are honored to share a special message from a member of the President's Cabinet who also serves as the administrator for the SBA, Administrator Isabel Guzman. Please take a moment to enjoy her message.
Welcome and happy National Veteran Small Business Week. I'm SBA Administrator Isabel Casillas Guzman and proud to celebrate this week with you as we honor the countless veterans and military family members who continue their service to our nation through entrepreneurship. There's no greater way to value your contributions as entrepreneurs than to help you start and grow your businesses, which is why this week is all about online and in-community activities and trainings for you. Under the Biden-Harris administration, the SBA has scaled its centers, programs, and critical resources for veterans and military spouses. Military entrepreneurs have grit and determination and an ability to mobilize teams to achieve mission, qualities that make you incredible small business owners. However, no one achieves long-term sustainable business growth and success without help, networks, collaboration, and partnership. Nobody can do it alone. And that's why we're here today, to give you tools, connections, and resources to help you grow your business through federal contracts. Under Biden-Harris, small business contracting has been a top priority, with the whole of government approach to creating more opportunities for small businesses to compete and win contracts. The SBA is the federal agency that negotiates with agencies across the government to spend more with small businesses. And we know we need more contract-ready, certified small businesses to deliver the products and services that help agencies fulfill their missions. In 2023, we prioritized our veterans by streamlining certification for veteran and service-disabled veterans with our rollout of VetCert. The SBA now has over 30,000 certified veterans, and thanks to our efforts, the federal government has already hit the newly set 5% goal for contracts to service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. In 2024, the SBA set a single-year record, certifying more than 17,000 small businesses across all of our certifications, a nearly 40% increase over the previous year. And just last month, on October 15th, we successfully launched our world-class streamlining across all of our certifications with the introduction of MySBA Certifications, an online application tool to help you apply to multiple certifications at once. In less than half of an hour, our veterans, women, HubZone, and socioeconomic disadvantaged firms can apply to get certified and begin the journey to take their business to the next level with contracts. I am so glad you are here and interested in doing business with the largest buyer in the world, Uncle Sam. Over the past 4 years, we've broken records in small business spending, increased lending, and expanded our networks to serve you all. Now is the best time to get started by joining today's Certification Advantage for the Military Community event. Thank you for being here, and happy National Veterans Small Business Week.
Now, I would like to introduce Mr. John Perkins. Mr. John Perkins is the Director of Veteran Small Business Certification Program at the United States Small Business Administration, and he's today's presenter. Now, while Mr. Perkins is presenting, if you have questions, you can insert those questions in the chat. And if we don't address your question in the chat, after the presentation, Mr. John Perkins can address those questions then. Without further ado, Mr. John Perkins.
Mark, thank you for that kind introduction. And thank you, Victor, for presenting and giving us another introduction. I appreciate everybody's time to come together to find out about VetCert certifications and how the process works. Slide, please. So without ado, you can't have a Navy guy in any kind of slide deck without having a sea story. Being a 23-year Navy vet, I have to give at least one sea story. And right now I'm actually in San Diego, and only about 3 miles from here is 32nd Street Naval Base, where the USS Fort Fisher resided when I was there in about 93 to 96 as the first lieutenant. One of my jobs was to communicate with my sister branch, the Marines that were embarked on the ship. And at one point, the Marines, before they would go to ashore, they would wind up stealing every toilet paper roll inside of the ship, all across the ship. And it got so bad that, unfortunately, they started stealing it from the captain's cabin and the XO's heads. And so finally, I had to bring all the Marines on the back of the ship at the flight deck area. You can see that on the back end of the ship. I got a bullhorn and I asked the CO of troops, can you gather those folks together so we can resolve this problem, because my supply petty officer, BM1 star, said, "Sir, I can't keep up with this." And so what happened was, I explained to them that if they wanted to take a tour of the forecastle and the storage department there, that I could show them more cases of toilet paper than they could ever steal. And I explained to them that, look, I mean, you can steal it, but wouldn't it be easier if I just handed you a few cases and we got around the problem? So I communicated with the Marines, which sometimes from a Navy perspective guy, that can become difficult. And so finally they agreed. And so every time they went ashore, my supply petty officer just handed a couple of cases of toilet paper and everybody was happy. What do I mean by this in terms of vet cert process? Well, I mean, if you have a problem, we have a great 1-866 number that'll be the last slide. There is an email inbox with anything that you've got going on wrong with the new certification process, and we'd love to hear from you. Our customer service relations team is ready and able to help you with anything. Slide, please. A couple of legislative updates I want to go over because they are important. The Vet Cert 2024 National Defense Authorization Act required by December 22nd of 2024 that all firms for subcontracting and goaling purposes must also be certified by SBA Vet Cert program. It used to be a self-certification within sam.gov, but because of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024, everybody has to be certified by December 22nd, 2024, or at least have an application in. It used to be you could self-certify and then you could go for subcontracting credit and or goaling credit. That will end December 22nd, 2024. But all you have to do is, if you want to continue that process, you just have to have an application in to the new certification system. And then you are good until we make a determination and say that you are certified, and or if you have some problems, maybe not get certified, you may have to apply again. But for the purposes of contracting and subcontracting, right now you need to get your application in if you are in that world. Secondarily, like the administrator said, we went from 3% to 5% for service-disabled, veteran-owned small business set-aside goaling, and we met that, which is an incredible thing. And just to give you some numbers, the bottom small bullet, 2023 SDVOSB set-asides was $31 billion, up from $22 billion in FY 2022. So in the GovCon space, there is a great advantage for being certified through this program. Slide, please. The second piece of this is the applications were paused for Vet Cert, the actual Vet Cert program that was what the administrator called the platinum process for certification programs. And that process was paused August 1st. But like I said from the previous slide, no worries if you're just trying to continue certifications for subcontracting and for goaling purposes. The certification program, the new one, that is going to be allowing more certifications in one spot. That process is now up and running. So you can basically get your process going. So no worries that it was paused on August 1st. We had a lot of questions on that, so I wanted to cover that. Slide, please. What are the eligibilities for requirements for veteran-owned small business and service-disabled small business? You have to be designated by VA, Veterans Affairs, the VBA, Veterans Benefit Administration. Guard and reserve personnel without active duty time on your DD-214 are not eligible. Other things, you must be considered a small business as defined by the Small Business Standard within SAM.gov by NAICS. NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification Standard. No less than 51% owned and controlled by one or more veterans. And we'll look into some other slides about some subcategories in that particular bullet. And then one or more veterans can be owned and controlled with a bottom permanent. For those veterans that are permanently and totally disabled, they can have a caregiver. That's a minor bullet at the very bottom. Slide, please. I want to go over this, the veteran qualifying law. This is 38 USC 101, parent 21, and I don't want to read this whole slide. It's a bit much of a large statute, but it directs the VA who is allowed to come into the program. By NDAA 2021, the only people that are allowed to designate who is a veteran and who is a service-disabled veteran for the purpose of this program is the VA. They have to tell us, the SBA, who is a veteran and who is not. And by their rule, their law, 38 USC says, and all this is saying is, those that are traditional guard and traditional reservists that never went to active duty are not eligible. I'll give you an example. My son is in the Army. He went to boot camp. In boot camp, I told him that technically if something happened to him and he was put out of the Army in boot camp, he would not be a veteran. He said, "Dad, how is that possible?" I said, you have to have you have to be enlisted and or an officer commissioning program. And then you have to go to at least training. You're still not a veteran. You have to go to the follow-on assignment, not guard and reserves, but the follow-on assignment. So when he got stationed out in Hawaii for his first duty station in the middle of that nice Oahu island, he became a veteran. And then I called him and said, "Hey, there's your 1 day of active duty. So when you get out, you will be a veteran. You can apply for vet cert." And he laughed at me. Slide, please. Here are the process slides for applying. It's kind of a repeat of one of the other slides I mentioned, but basically step one, 51% ownership, size standard within the NAICS within SAM.gov. Ensure you're registered within SAM.gov, meaning you have an active certification within SAM.gov online. And then you gather your required documentation based on your business type. It changes depending on what type of business you are. And then you apply. Slide, please. This is a bit of an eye chart, but basically here are the documents by different types of businesses that you would need. You can see that the corporation is longer. Obviously, with a corporation, you're going to need bylaws, you're going to need articles of incorporation, you're going to need shareholder agreements. You're going to need election of officers and appointing of officers for some of the business requirements. And then your copy of your most recent stock ledger adopted in the meeting minutes by resolution. LLC is a little bit shorter because it's not quite as complicated in business structure. You obviously have to have a copy of filed articles of organization filed with whatever state you filed them with. Then you have to have the operating agreement. That's very important. And then some of those minor items that you need to demonstrate some of the other business requirements within the regulation. So these are just two examples. You can scroll through these depending on your business type. And if you're another business type, something simpler like a sole prop, that list gets much shorter, very much shorter. So if you're considering making a business, a sole prop is probably the easiest way to go. One of the things that I will note on this slide, when you go to these one-stop shops for creating an LLC, be careful because some of their maybe mamabear.com or legalzoom.com, and you create an LLC, some of the boilerplate language, please listen to the following slides because some of that boilerplate language will not allow by regulation those boilerplate words to create the right company that you're looking towards to get certified. They will neglect or they will not allow you to get certified. So that's just kind of one point that we see as we go through the certification process. Slide, please. Some additional ownership details. Notice the bolded word, qualifying veterans must be entitled to receive dividends and distributions 51%. What does that mean? So let's say you are an incorporation and you've decided that you want to push back all of your proceeds, all of your entitled dividends back into the company. That's fine, but you have to be entitled as the veteran or veterans as a group to receive at least 51% of the profits. So it's okay that you put everything back into your business because maybe you're growing your business, maybe you're buying that extra dirt mover if you're construction, or you're spending more to hire IT folks in the IT world as you're building your IT company to be able to vie for some of the IT contracts that are within the federal government. that's fine, but you have to explain to us that in what we call a letter of explanation. So it's not a problem that you don't take it, but you have to be entitled in your business documents that I can take it if I want it. I can choose not to, but that's why that's bolded, entitled. Community property, that is basically an issue that no longer affects Vet Cert. It used to. It does affect 8A, and that's only for 7 states, but that's a subset. That's for only for 8A certifications. For the purposes of Vet Cert, that no longer is an issue that we look at. And I just put that in there in case people worry about community property. Surviving spouse, I will let you read that very briefly on what a surviving spouse is. Obviously, if the death is of the service member is due to a service-connected disability, there's a 10-year ability for the spouse to continue to operate that business as if they were the veteran. Slide, please. Okay, ownership types. I've kind of talked about this, so we won't spend long on the slide, but 51% ownership for a partnership, 51% of each class of member interest must be unconditionally owned by qualifying veteran. And we'll talk a little bit about unconditional, what that means a little bit later. And then a corporation, that is there. Slide, please. So a couple of just notes on control. As you look at these bullets, please recognize that you have to have control as the veteran and or veterans with management and daily business operations. What does that mean? That means that you can make a decision without mother may-ing back to the non-veterans if you've got if you have partners. So if you're the 51% owner, you have to have management and daily business operational control and long-term decision-making in day-to-day operations, meaning you can't say in your operating agreement, if you're an LLC or if you're an incorporation, that you can't have in the business documents that if there's an expenditure of, let's say, $2,000, that everybody has to agree that that $2,000 is an okay spend. The veterans have to be able to spend that money without mother may-ing back to the minority owners. I hope that makes sense. Managerial experience, it has to be the highest officer, meaning in the business documents or the meeting minutes as required documents, you have to be designated as the veteran and or veterans or one of the veterans as the highest officer. So let's say in an incorporation, if the highest officer is designated as the CEO, let's say in writing in the bylaws, the CEO will be the highest officer and have all ability to manage long-term decision-making and day-to-day operations. You need to have in your meeting minutes and or in the bylaws that who is the CEO, just name it plainly that it is the veteran. And then you will then have the general control and the highest officer position. Now, then you're going to ask me, John, what is manager position and experience? The experience is that you're going to write out basically that you can manage and you have the supervisor experience probably through some of your military experiences that you've managed people in groups, whatever level that is, that you can manage to the extent and complexity needed to control the concern. And that's the fourth bullet down in the middle of the page. Now, look, this is important. Not that you technically need to have expertise or directly holding the professional license. We are not expecting you to hold that exact professional license necessary to run the business, but that you must have the ultimate managerial and supervisor control over those that do. So there is sometimes questions. We're going to go back and say, well, how are you controlling this when you've got these technical people that are working for you? And you explain that and how that works in your business. Control over a partnership. Veteran must have control as a general partner, and then control over veteran. Veteran must have role as a managing member. So if you designate that the highest officer is the managing member, then that veteran has to be designated that. I'm just kind of noticing over one of the questions, nonprofits are not eligible. It's in the reg. Apologies, but it is not authorized in the regulation. Slide, please. Again, a little bit of an eye chart. I apologize, but it's important. Some of the control factors within controlled corporations got to be 100% of all voting stock held by veteran, and veteran is on the board of directors. 51% of the voting stock held by a veteran, and veteran is and the veteran is on the board of directors. So each time, one of the things you have to take away is the veteran and or veterans has to be on the board of directors. If it's 51%, there can't be a supermajority, meaning something in the bylaws that says you've got to have 75% voting yes. That goes back to that kind of mother may I thing. And let's say you only had 51% that are veterans. That's a supermajority. And if you can't overcome it with block voting, two veterans saying we own 85%, 75% is needed, and the veterans are going to vote together, that might be a problem in your business documents. So you need to look into your business documents to make sure that you can always make a decision by the veteran and or veterans without mother may-I-ing back to the minority owners. If none of the above is the case, veterans must control the board of directors through actual numbers or voting directors through weighted voting. And that's what I mean by weighted voting. Let's say you put in your bylaws, you can say that the veteran gets 3 votes to everybody's 1 to make sure you have weighted voting, that you always have that ability to make the decisions without mother may I. Slide, please. This is kind of one of the catch-all. All of the elements of control boil down to the fact that what we are looking for in the SBA really is that there is not non-veteran control. So that there's always red flags as we look through cases that we have to look at. Some of the red flags are the 3rd bullet down. What are red flags that might see that it's non-veteran control or potentially pass through going to another organization, another person that is not a veteran? Are there shared resources with a non-veteran company? Equipment, personnel, co-location, meaning that another company that you are sharing equipment and location, and maybe there is critical licensing and or bonding. All three of those things being there, we might ask a few more questions because those are red flags for us that there might be non-veteran control going on. Non-veteran has all the industry-related experience and the education, but none of the expertise, relying heavily on other people. Could you operate the business without all these other things being there? Could you operate the business without this co-location? If there's evidence of exclusive pass-through arrangements beyond the allowable standards. This is a little bit of a I would say, a test to make sure that we're following the regulation and not allowing non-veteran control. And you can see that I have a VA cemetery contract example. I live out of DC, a little ways, about 30 miles, and I drive my truck through Manassas, Virginia a lot. And as I was going, I got a call from a veteran that we had just sent them a note that we would be not approving his recertification way back when I was at the VA CVE, Center for Verification and Evaluation, because I used to be over there as well. And this individual basically said, "Hey, John, why are you not going to let me certify?" I said, "Well, how are you doing your business?" And he said, "What I'm doing is I'm hiring everybody, and then I'm just passing that across to the cemetery folks that actually run the business. It's another business, and he just takes our folks that I hire, and then he does all the work. He's got all the workers, he's got all the equipment, and he has most of the contacts, and he actually goes to the meetings with the VA when they're kicking off a contract, and he does all the talking. All I am is a staffing company." Well, that's the definition of pass-through. And I had to say, "Sir, the fact that you actually got through the certification prior probably wasn't good. And the fact that you had that contract probably was a pass-through. So we are not going to be able to certify you with your business model." So that's my VA cemetery model. And that's what a pass-through kind of looks like with all those red flags. We got all those red flags right there. And we had to say, "I'm sorry, but you can't be certified." Slide, please. And then I think I've talked to most of these things, but let me just draw your attention to outside obligations. You can have an outside obligation. You can wind up having a job and then having your business as well, that's fine. You just have to explain how you're doing that. Sometimes with your hours of operation in your 9-to-5 job, let's say you're working for a big DoD contractor and you're starting your IT business at night and you developed it and you're looking for contracts. You just explain to us how you're doing that. As long as you have ultimate managerial and supervisor control over day-to-day management and long-term decision making, that's fine. You just got to explain it to us in a letter of explanation. When I talked about some of the boilerplate stuff within some of these entities that create an LLC for you and give you the documentation, there are things that you're allowed to have in there. So if your minority owner has to be allowed to add a new equity stakeholder, or you have to talk to, a minority owner about dissolving the company or selling the company or merging the company with another or declaring bankruptcy, those are normal business practice. Those 5 exceptions are allowed within your documentation. So don't worry about non-minority efforts in your business document that have those exceptions. There is an exception for active duty. If you get called up as a guard and reserve and you can actually continue your certification provided you appoint somebody and provide those documents to the SBA, which is a great little element that was added recently in 2021. Slide, please. Okay, now we're getting into where we were in the old process within government contracting, business development for certification silos, and where the administrator wanted to go to get this a little bit more user-friendly. Prior to just last month, the SBA set-aside certification community had 4 different systems, 4 different logons, 4 different processes, 4 sets of the same questions, 4 sets of the same documents to upload. I think you're getting the picture that they were stovepiped. And the administrator said, look, we started up VetCert. It is what she used to call the platinum standard of processes. Let's take those lessons learned and let's roll all these certification programs. So if you're going after multiple certifications, let's say you're a veteran, which all of you are probably, but maybe you're also women-owned small business and or you're 8A potentially and HubZone. Now you can apply for all 4 certification programs in one platform using the same standards that we set up for VetCert. And so she came up with this concept and then said, go. And so we're all developing this program over about the last 2 years. And we're proud to announce, as she did, that we've stood up this program and it's online now. Slide, please. Now the process is so cool. There's only one big arrow, one logon, one common application, one document depository, common terminology, one set of folks looking at all of the certifications being cross-trained. So you're not maybe going for a WASB certification, putting documentation in there, and then having a different result with other documentation going to another reviewer here, and maybe getting different answers when ownership and control for women-owned small business and VetCert is pretty much the same thing. So when I'm talking about some of these elements about how ownership and control is viewed in the regulation, it's almost the same for WASB, 8A, and VetCert. So we want to have a common decision out the other end, and we want to make it easier for those for multiple certifications. So this was the administrator's goal, her vision, and this is where we are right now. And we're pretty excited about it. Slide, please. MySBA Certifications is here. This is the website where you start. That's a little snippet of what it looks like when you land on the page. Slide, please. Here's another slide of how you're going to look for this, what you're going to do. If you'll notice, a lot of the same stuff. You're going to have to gather all your business documents. You have to ensure that you're in sam.gov and still active. You're going to answer all the business questions up front, answer a bunch of questions about who you are, so we don't have to answer you more questions later. That is a direct result of the administrator saying, let's ask more questions up front. That's what she told us to do in VetCert. And she used that model as we pushed over to UCP. And then we review it, you review it, and then you submit it. Slide, please. Here's another page where you're going to decide, what am I eligible for? It'll ask you questions. You'll decide what you're going to apply for. So let's say you used to be, you're applying for vet cert, SDVOSB, service disabled, or veteran status, but you are a woman. Okay, now you're going to check woman. You're going to add a few more documents because you're going to need to now maybe send in driver's license, maybe a passport or a birth certificate, and some other name change items to prove gender. And then you can apply for women owned as well, which is so cool. Slide, please. And if you notice, if you've ever seen me do this process before, the process is still the same for Vet Cert. This is an old Vet Cert slide that is now used for showing the 4 processes, the 4 phases of the new MySBA certification process. Number 1, application submission. We've kind of gone over this. You create your online account. You go to the certifications website. Owners upload their documents by business type. We talked about that, what you're going to need depending on your business type. Then it goes to screening. You have a personal screener looking at these things and making sure that you've got all the documents in there. If you don't have all the documents in there, you'll have a personal message coming back from the screener saying you need to add a few more documents. You might get a return to business saying, please upload extra documents for this. You're missing this. And that's pretty cool because just like Vet Cert, the administrator said, we're going to have personal people answering back, and we're going to make sure that everybody knows what they're deficient early in the screening process. And that happens. If the screener then says, yep, it's good to go, that screener then passes it over to analysis. In analysis, everything I went over on the prior slides in all the different certification programs are looking at the regulation. So for the regulation for Vet Cert, which I know the best, 13 CFR Part 128, we're looking at all these things I talked about: ownership and control, highest officer, ability to take distributions, 51% eligible to. Looking at that, looking at the business documents, and this analyst will go through all the business documents and find to make sure that it's in compliance in all those regulatory sections. And that happens for each certification that you're applying for. And notice that whatever the fact patterns are, if there's a problem, just like Vet Cert, if there's a problem, you have the opportunity to correct within this business flow, meaning that the administrator kept the best of Vet Cert, meaning that the analyst will send it back to you with a complete fact pattern that says, here's where you might not be able to be eligible. So you can correct it inside the process. Given a couple of days, you might have to update your operating agreement, maybe get back with your minority owners and have them sign and date and execute a new operating agreement. Or maybe you didn't designate who the highest officer was, and you could just add that as meeting minutes, sign it, date it, put it in a PDF and upload it. So we've kept the best of Vet Cert, and now we're adding it to the rest of the certification programs. Then the recommendation is made over to the decision. That's always a federal personnel. This is an inherently federal process, so we want to make sure there's federal eyes on. They approve the certification, and or if there's a denial, then that denial is also made sure that it makes sense. So you're getting communication back that makes sense and has the whole picture for you based on your fact patterns. But the administrator wanted to make sure that all the certification programs have less documentation if available, a smooth flow, everybody looking at it in one set of eyes for all the certification programs. And we believe we hit the nail right on the head. Slide, please. And here's the takeaway slide. I will say that we have a great CRM team, customer relations management program, that will answer questions at 1-866-443-4110. And that is a brand new number. And you can email certifications@sba.gov. And there's a really robust FAQ section. And for some of the market research, FPDS is there, as well as the dynamic small business search. And that is where COs then look for your company. Once certified, that's where they're going to go, DSBS in the new system. That's my presentation. I thank you for your service. I thank you for listening to a very old guy talk about something he's passionate about. And at this point, I'll stall for questions. Thank you.
John, this is Mark. There was one question that I wasn't able to address. John, the question was, let's say you have an LLC, 100% ownership by the veteran, but the LLC has members that includes the spouse and the son. Is that eligible?
Great question, Mark. And the answer would be if the managing member, the veteran, has to mother may I back to those other managing members, if I'm hearing the question right, if there is a requirement that managing members can't make a decision by themselves, or it appears that the non-veteran managing members has day-to-day management and supervisory control, or let's say, because I don't know until I read the document, let's say it says that it takes 2/3 of the managing members to make a decision, then that would be no, because it sounds like there's three or two, more than three, or at least three. And if you're saying you need, at least 2/3 to make a decision, that answer would be no. The key is that the highest officer is the veteran.
John, thank you so much. So just to reiterate, if the veteran has to get permission from the two other members, including the spouse and the son, and if the spouse and son are involved in the day-to-day operations, it may not be eligible.
That's correct. And really, I can't really give legal advice because OGC gets mad with me, so I tend to stay away from that. But what part of this is when it says that the veteran is the highest officer, if there is the managing member, if there's managing members, that could be legally a problem, because then there's more than one highest officer, if you follow me. But there's so many ways to skin the cat. But again, one of the things you can do is put the paperwork in, and then we can talk about it. But I tend to shy away from, all what I would call scenarios in case uses, because I can't see all the paperwork, and until we see it, then it's kind of hard to answer.
So the individual that had this question regarding the LLC, 100% ownership, spouse and son, Mr. John Perkins, the director, his recommendation is you submit the application and then they will review the details.
That's correct, without promise of certification. But what I think is, the other thing you could do, and I'll also give this, because it's not on my SBA verification support contacts. You could also go to a VBOC and or an Apex accelerator and have them look at the documents prior and see if they would ask you to go ahead and maybe adjust the business documents before you turn it in. But either way works. What we can't do is kind of give hypotheticals until we see all what's in the business documents, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. John, we have two more questions. Here's another one for you. Are there SBA personnel available to help Stephen get through the submission process? I have some cognitive difficulties and could use a helping hand to get through. Thank you again, sir.
Yes, sir, there is. And that's all going back to the prior slide. I would contact the help desk and explain the issues. And there are both contractors and federal personnel in the CRM team that could do that. Yes, sir.
One last question here, Jeff, and this is from Jeff Atkinson. John, the question is, I already have certification, but I'm looking at purchasing another company. If I fold the new company into my existing one, or another way of saying that is merging the two companies, and keep the operating agreement as is, but keeping this other company's name and brand, does that certification pass to that entity, or do I need to get get it certified as well?
Yeah, any new company will have to go all the way through. You can't transfer certifications. And remember, I'll just kind of I said the word direct, but I actually didn't go into what that means. That means direct ownership. So it can't be a business through a business. So you got to be careful about it's 51% directly owned by the veteran, not a business through a business. People get kind of stuck on that. And sometimes we have to say people can't get certified because they don't have direct ownership, where it's in the business document, the veteran owns it, not by let's say a rollover business startup ROBS, which is where you take a 401k and you or IRA and you roll that into business money that you then create a business. That's not direct. Well, the same thing applies by having another company own a company. You can get in trouble with that. So got to be careful there. And it doesn't automatically, the second part of that question, it doesn't automatically transfer from one business to another when you roll things in. Immediately, if you do that, then you're going to have to submit to the other company. Your first company would stay certified, but the second one would have to go through.
10-4, John, this may be a question for Ms. Elizabeth Charles or Ms. Nina Ramon. The question is, will we get the chat transcript when we receive the recording?
Yeah, that'll be somebody else. I'm not team savvy.
And
Yeah, so everybody that has that is on this call and registered for the call and wasn't able to attend, this is being recorded, and so we will send out the video through our YouTube link, and I can also include the chat as well.
10-4, thank you so much, Nina. John, this concludes all the questions. Outstanding presentation, outstanding answers to the questions. Really do value and appreciate your presentation.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I'll just say anchors away first, but I'll say hua because of my son. So I'll leave it at that and be smart. Thank you.
John, thank you. Bravo Zulu, job well done. As we come to the close of today's workshop, we hope you've gained valuable resources and insights to support you on your small business journey. Remember, we are here to help you at every stage. And that includes special resources for our veteran community. Veterans, programs like Boots to Business, which is an introduction to entrepreneurship course, and its follow-on course, Revenue Readiness, supported through Mississippi State University, provides additional tools to help veteran-owned businesses thrive. The SBA has 68 district offices located throughout the country, and veterans know that you have a veteran business development officer near you associated with that respective district office. And we are committed to supporting you no matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey or where you are located. Through these offices, our extensive network of resource partners, you have access to a wide array of resources, including entrepreneurial training like this, federal contracting programming, disaster assistance, access to capital, and more. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to being part of your journey to success. Thank you so much. This concludes this presentation.